Also, it's just kind of morbid when you realize that Beomgyu sets the bushes on fire in Magic Island. Hello friends and sunflowers, my name is Lena and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be going over the TXT universe and how Blue Hour fits into it. The Japanese version of Blue Hour, because I already did a video on the Korean version of Blue Hour. If you're new to the TXT universe, there's a few things that you should know about their storyline before we go into it. First, even when their music videos aren't really telling us just directly the story of the TU, which is like, you know, basically that means they show the logo at the end of the video. Even if it's not one of these videos, they often still hint at or like continue to build upon that storyline. I call these story-based music videos, and they're often surrounding like a different event that builds up into the TXT universe, so they're all related in that sense. Second, it does seem that TXT is generally covering like the struggles of youth in today's like modern world. Like even 5-10 years ago, the landscape of the world was totally different. People still experience emotions the same way, and yet we have to process them slightly differently now because even though, you know, people will struggle with their friends and all this stuff, we now have social media and these things that are challenges when you're growing up with that wasn't something that maybe your parents had grown up with. So TXT is talking about that, which is part of why I believe their story is so important. They have a really fun, unique way of telling this story, So understanding this, the basics of their like narrative within the TXT universe is that they were friends growing up, but due to circumstances we don't entirely understand, they forgot that they were friends as children and then reunited later in high school, I think. The star was waiting for them to reunite and is waiting to properly wake up when they become together again, basically. And as we saw in the Magic Island music video, there's probably a lot of trials and stuff that they have to go through first before this can actually happen. So we understand that while the boys do appear to be friends, and while they definitely do seem to want to be friends with each other, they're not considered like a full unit yet because the star is still sleeping. There are definitely problems in their dynamics that are waiting to just bubble up to the surface, and we've already seen some of it. So I do think that the idea of Blue Hour is sort of summing this up really nicely. In fact, when we look at the Korean version of Minisode 1, it was kind of meant to segue from the chapter of dreams to the chapter of chaos. What am I saying? But still dreaming, the Japanese album release definitely just adds more value to that. This music video is where they, for a moment, could just sort of dream that they were back as friends together and doing the things that they love without any problems. And then we start to see that not necessarily the case. This is where they, for a moment, can just believe that that friendship is still alive and well. It's that time, the blue hour, when the sun is setting and the sky is absolutely beautiful, and that moment where you're looking up at it feels like magic. That's kind of the idea and vibe they're going for. This is before the darkness sets in, and as we see in the lyrics of the video, it's the hour of the dog and the wolf, where you can't tell if it is a friend, a dog, or a enemy, a wolf. So you don't know who to trust and who not to, or you can't tell if you should trust them or not. But yes, the Japanese album Still Dreaming really ties into this idea. In the video, they are dreaming still. But this is all happening before the inevitable downfall into chaos that happens at nighttime. The intro and the outro of this album are also actually flipped around. The title of the album is called Still Dreaming, but the intro is called Dreaming and the outro is called Still. And if you think about it, we open up with them dreaming and having fun in their dreams, so that's why it's opening with dreaming. But it ends with them in complete darkness, standing still, looking around at their surroundings. So of course it ends with stillness. This definitely seems to be a thematic thing for TXT with the fun and then going into the stillness at the end. So I see what you did there, Big Hit, and I like it. Also, if you have no idea, I talked about this before, but the Chaos chapter is pretty much confirmed to be the next trilogy of albums after the Dream chapter. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you should watch my video in the card. So in the Korean version of the Blue Hour music video, the whole thing kind of felt like a dream. In this video, it feels like they're in reality. But let me elaborate just a little bit more as we walk through the music video. They come to an old, worn-down theme park called Joy Adventure. Now, some people have pointed out that the D is falling off on the adventure, so it says Joy Adventure, and the meaning of venture is similar to adventure, but it generally means like a more dangerous thing because you don't know the outcome. So you can go on an adventure for fun and profit, or you could go on a venture and there's more risk involved. It's just a matter of perspective. I would like to think though that TXT's like future chaos kind of ties into that, if that is an intentional reasoning for why the D is falling off. In general, this is basically them kind of looking back on their experiences that they have had. So I can imagine that most people in the world have gone to a theme park as a child. So this is them going around and having, like, hanging on to their experiences of youth. So, you know, going around, riding rides, discovering things with your friends. And I think for the most part, this captures them as teens, looking back at those memories and sort of just trying to relive them one more time before they have to move on as adults. The outfits that they're wearing actually feel like a cross between like a school uniform in some of the scenes and a business suit in others. The dance shot has them in suits, but paired with boy shorts that feel more youthful to me in terms of styling. Anyways, there are several references to theme parks in past music videos. The first obvious one that comes to mind is the Japanese version of Runaway, where they're actually riding on a roller coaster. We do see a roller coaster in the back. Might be the same kind of idea. The other major reference is, of course, the other Blue Hour music video, the one in Korean, where they have a carousel and they have a Ferris wheel. And there's like a lake behind them here, which does feel like it's meant to be the same part where the lake is with the maple tree in the other Blue Hour music video. And this is further added to by the fact that the live performance of the Japanese version has the maple tree in the background. Also, there's a swan on this lake, and I wasn't sure if I should include this or not, but the swan makes me think of Black Swan because of the lake. That could just be a fun little reference, and I wanted to say that. Okay, next. It should be noted that I think the Ferris wheel is actually like a major part of their imagination and not necessarily representative of reality. So it might be referencing time, which is what I kind of assumed in Blue Hour, like the fact that their time is continuously moving even when they try to rewind it. And as we can see, the idea of imagination and dreams is very prevalent, and the Ferris wheel in this music video actually has like missing pieces on it, so like they've fallen off, which we see Yeonjun riding in one, sort of. But yeah, it's falling apart, and this kind of reflects the state of their magic, their imagination. Actually, anything that feels like magical or like a bit unrealistic in this video happened pretty much in time with the lyrics of the song, "'Cause of imagination." I don't know why I had to do this singing and dancing with it. So the part with the floating teacups, for example, it's at the same point where he says, "'Cause of imagination." Feels a bit like Alice in Wonderland, once again, similar to the previous music video. And the part where Yeonjun is launched into the sky like a rocket. Thank you, Subin and Kai, for doing that. But yeah, this idea is heavily tied to the fact that, like, we're seeing all of these magical things happen related to their imagination. Something that they've held when they're together and because they're in their childhood. I do think it has to do with them being together as well as their childhood, but it's possible their perspective of it is that it's like, oh, this is something you can only have as a kid, which as an adult is not true, but maybe they're working up to that, I don't know. We know that they can do magic. We've seen them rewinding time in Runaway, and they've been shown using wands before, also in Runaway. However, there do seem to be like limitations to this. I actually really want to do a video that talks about like the different ways that time travel works in the Big Hit universes, because they're not the same. Like, they're all slightly different versions of time travel, and I think it's very interesting, so if you want that, let me know. Interestingly, in the teacup scene, we actually see on Taehyun's fingernail, there's like a little smiley face. We keep seeing these smiley faces all over the place. I do think it's a reference possibly to Watchmen. I've talked about this a lot in detail, so I'll just do it briefly, but essentially the smiley face is what you wear on the outside, but it kind of conceals your inner darkness, so the fact that we're seeing it again. We see Pumgyu floating in an alien spaceship, which might mean that aliens are coming in the future. Maybe. But also probably this thematically ties into the idea that he is feeling alienated. I've mentioned this a bunch before, especially in my video breakdown for drama, where we saw this theme very often, along with other music videos. We've also previously seen alien spaceships on the board, my favorite board, drawn by Subin, in the Runaway music video. It also might tie into the tiger that we see running into the spaceship in the background of the Blue Orangeade music video. Interestingly enough, the fact that it's a tiger and Pom in Pumgyu means tiger. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. Probably isn't, considering they had to animate that. Also, the Blue Orangeade music video is like a treasure trove of everything. I feel like it's referenced every single music video thus far, and probably ones in the future that we just haven't seen yet. Like, This scene where they're fighting with the Nerf guns was in the Blue Orangeade music video. Even the plants are the same. Did they already know where they were going to be filming the Japanese version of this music video? Like, I just want to know who did this and tell them that I love them. Anyways, as with all other ideas of the imagination, Pongyu is flying over and trying to impress them yet again, and I do think that he is at least successful at this point. In drama, we kind of saw that he was feeling really separated from them, and he wanted them to, you know, come over and help him up, and they never did. They just kind of stared at him like he was crazy for falling over. And then here they're like, wow, you're flying in the sky. Can't tell if that's actually a part of his imagination or not. I'm leaning towards it being more of his imagination because we do see another part with the exact same transition as in drama, where they're like coming out of their reverie state. Same part of in drama where he's like, oh, I'm dreaming. I kind of went over this in my drama explained video, but he's the first to kind of realize that they're in this fantasy world and that things aren't as great as they're making them out to be, and I think that he probably doesn't actually like that fact, and he's just like kind of bitter about the fact that it's like, oh, this has been fake the whole time. This does stem from a connection to Catcher in the Rye, which is a part of his code in the port version of the album, in the Eternity album, which ironically has like a lot of heavy imagery surrounding carousels, specifically in regards to childhood. I talk more about it in that video, but yeah, that's how come I've come to that particular conclusion. As we go into the dance break, after this transitional part, we see Yeonjun standing in darkness. And this reminds me a lot of like the individual scenes of the future that we saw in Eternally as well. Yeonjun is surrounded by horses of the carousel, almost like he's in the middle of it and they're the ones surrounding him. So he is like a part of the carousel, which is very interesting. Like he is the ride that's making them spin around. Likewise, an actual live horse is running around him as well, same as the carousel, round and round. We also see this exact same imagery in the choreography for the song where Yeonjun's in the middle and the others are reaching out to, like, attached to him as if they're part of the carousel. He's spinning them around. Now, I'm not 100% sure what this could mean, but there are a few possibilities. First, he's the one who holds them all together. He's the cog in the middle who's holding them all together. Second, he's the one who's creating the magic and the time itself. Like, he's the reason that they can do it. He's controlling time, or he's the one who is the key to their memories. He's like the reason for it all. And considering he's probably the main character, this could make sense. I doubt he's aware of it though. Third, he could be leading them in circles. Third? Is that third? Anyway, he could be leading them in circles. Maybe it's just because he's the leader. But yeah, so that's a lot of reasons. And also, like, as I mentioned, he could be the reason for the magic, and his hair actually supports this fact. It's pink and blue, which are the colors of the, like, sunrise, sunset in the blue hour that we're seeing in this music video. Even they use pink and blue, like, smoke. They use pink and blue smoke in the music video to sort of emulate the sunset. The sets are pink and blue, so he is kind of related to the magic directly in that sense. Not only that, but it was actually pink in the other music video for Blue Hour as well, which I find interesting. It's hard to say exactly if this ties into it or not, because obviously they changed their hair color a lot, but him and Subin were both pink and blue in this video and the last one. And the fact that Subin's hair specifically is blue in both of these music videos, I feel like is important as well. If you have watched pretty much any of my recent videos, I've been saying the same thing over and over again. Blue equals magic, so Subin equals some sort of form of magic. And I just finished saying that Yeonjun might be the reason for the magic, but I think Subin is the one who's carrying the magic. He has like a magic die in his hand at the end of Eternally, so as we go into the Chaos chapter, he's going to be in possession of this die. He's the one who gives the magic book to Yeonjun in one of the bad endings in Eternally. But yeah, anyways, as for this real live horse that is running around Yeonjun, it could mean a couple different things. First, I do think that it's because the magic ends, anything that was an illusion or fake came to life, so it's real, which is a aspect of Magic Island, which I'll talk about. But yeah, so that's why the carousel horse is turned into a real horse, at least for Yeonjun. Many people have also pointed out that a white horse can symbolize innocence and purity, but it also can be a bringer of bad omens and death. And we know Yeonjun dies a lot, so Donut Yeonjun, it lies somewhere in his future. Also, as we cut to a new dance shot here, they are in a forest, which is probably a reference to the mind labyrinth, the forest in your mind, where you go in, discover yourself, and come back out. It's a reference to the subconscious, basically, and a sense of like individuation, which is a theory from Carl Jung, which you might be familiar with if you're familiar with BTS. In TXT's case, though, this is definitely a reference to Magic Island, which is a physical place in TXT's storyline, once again representing the subconscious, which means that things that they think about come to life, hence the horse. It reflects their thoughts and their actions and like different things, which is why we see them like with monsters, because the monsters are meant to represent their fears or their pain. I also mentioned this in my reaction for this music video, but they actually often draw faces on like the trees in Magic Island in the Magic Island music video, so it's like watching the boys. And even in Nap of a Star, the trees that they used are all birch trees. It's really creepy once you notice this, but it kind of looks like little eyes just watching you or at him just the whole time. So while it's definitely a surprise that the bushes jump up and start dancing with them, it's also not when you start to think about it. You're like, oh, I see why they did this. It's like the forest is alive and keeping an eye on them, is watching them, even if the boys aren't aware of it. Also, it's just kind of morbid when you realize that Beomgyu sets the bushes on fire in Magic Island. Anyways, then it goes into the scene with the carousel, which interestingly is a lot more vibrant of a carousel than the one that was in their imagination in the other Blue Hour music video. Like, this one is like, I was looking at it thinking, wow, this is such a majestic looking carousel right now. It also has a ton of very interesting imagery etched into it, which I will talk about now very quickly. First, at the top here on the outside, there are two figures holding a harp and a mirror. Along the inside, we get this horned figure that kind of looks like the devil, and also Yeonjun. This is not the first time we've seen a devil figure in the TXT story, though, that is separate from Yeonjun. We've got more mirrors, more people holding harps and mirrors, Pegasus, cherubs, clouds. These are all things that are associated with heaven, which gives me like angel and devil vibes. On the inner part, it seems like there are centaurs, women holding a basket of eggs, and a mirror, and more mirrors. There's a lot of mirrors! There's a lot of possible references to Helen of Troy and Aphrodite in these things, and she's like the goddess of love, so I mean, I guess the love chapter wasn't a total bust. I have no idea why these goddesses are shown, but it's just another connection to like the whole Greek storyline. If this is referenced to like other goddesses that I could not find in my own research, please let me know. I am not an expert on Greek mythology, but yes, let me know. Then as the song ends, it cuts to Taeyeon, and the magic on his side ends. We see the teacup, which was previously floating in the sky, now falling to the ground. Now, someone pointed out to me that this exact same teacup was used in one of New West's trailers for Nocturne. I'm not sure if this has relevance or not, but it is under Pledis, which is the same as like 17, and has been acquired by Big Hit. And New West do seem to have their own storyline. I haven't like had a ton of time to like look into them, but it's something I want to do. I do think it's possible that their storyline could be retroactively written so that it could take place in the Big Hit universe as a whole with the other stories. Anyway, that's for another video. My point is, I found it interesting that this was for Nocturne, and all of this happened as soon as it turned to night, and Nocturne, like, it means night. And also the teacup falls in both of these, and in Nocturne it actually breaks, so that's fun. Anyways, the fact that this music video opens up with Beomgyu walking in the center, whose story arc we just finished seeing, and then it ends on Taeyeon, like, this basically is telling me that because this ends on his face, his story arc is gonna be next, which means that Kai's arc is last, which mirrors Yeonjun. Kai had the wings, Yeonjun had the horns. They're opposites, kind of, thematically. The story arc order so far has followed Yeonjun, then Subin, and Beomgyu, now Taeyeon, and going into Kai at the end. So I'm really excited to see what's gonna happen after that, because I'm not entirely sure at the moment. Anyways, Taeyeon's whole theme so far is related to like clues and detectives. We got like a detective story related to him specifically. So yeah, I feel like we're gonna get a lot of little clues in the next comeback, and we're gonna feel like Sherlock because Taeyoon, I feel like he's gonna start to try to figure stuff out and understand like more about Magic Island and the dragon, because we did see him with eggs, which could be dragon eggs. I don't know. I'm really hoping that Taeyoon and this next arc will start giving us some really solid answers. Speaking of things that are solid, ghosts. They're not. Well, they might be in this case, actually. Anyway, we see them in this scene. Now, earlier in the music video, the boys themselves put these ghost costumes on, which does seem to imply that these two ghosts that are walking away are possibly two of the members. It's impossible to tell which ones. It could also be referencing the 2 times that Yeonjun died that we've seen so far, not including Donut Yeonjun. It also could be referencing the 2 like ghost girls that we see in Magic Island and Eternally, which one of them is in a school uniform and one of them is wearing a white dress. Once again, feels a little bit like an angel-devil situation. To be honest, we don't really know what these girls are doing necessarily. Like, we see one of them hug Soobin, but that's kind of it. If I had to wager a guess, my theory in the Eternally music video was that that white ghost girl was tied to the star, which is tied to us as Moa. And it might be tied to the name that they must recall, which is like a recurring story thing for them. Also, as I mentioned in my reaction, these could be a reference to the lyrics of Ghosting, which was on the Korean version of the album. These lyrics are pretty much exactly the situation that Taeyoon finds himself in right now. You disappeared for a moment. You disappeared. Like a faint ghost. I ask it in the empty void. What am I to you? You disappeared for a moment. You disappeared. Like a faint ghost. In a room where only echoes linger. I wander alone all the time. I'm like a ghost. But this can also probably cover the reason why the boys put on these like ghost sheets in the first place. They're drifting apart. There's also the faintest sound of what seems to be a bird chirping that you can hear in this scene, which might be a reference to the blue birds that we see in the other Blue Hour music video. I would not be surprised if like birds and wildlife became part of the story, because TXT has a large focus on like the fairy tale aspect of things. Like everything they do feels like a storybook and a fairy tale, and in fairy tales, you know, you always have the person who's singing to the birds, and the birds and the wildlife are part of the story. Especially, as I did mention, Kai's arc is last and he's heavily associated with wings. We'll have to see. The 2 carousel horses on the other side feel a little bit lonely to me. One of them is just like lying on its side and has like a painted red stripe on it, which might just be like the design of the horse. I can't tell, but the fact that they chose it to be the red one is really concerning to me because of other things that are red. And it's also at the part where we like see the pole going through the horse, which kind of reminds me of Donut Yeonjun. I'm not sure what this means, except that, you know, I feel like it can only foretell more death in the future and more danger. Yay! Finally, the sign in the corner. Now, this sign is very interesting, and it gives us even further proof that TXT and BTS are in the same universe. Now, this sign says Terminator. It clearly seems to be like the sign for some sort of ride, not sure what. Whenever I look it up, all I get is the Terminator movie, which it also could be referencing, because just think of the Terminator movie. It happens in like dystopian future. But this is visible not only in the backgrounds of the shots of this music video, but also behind Taehyung in a photo shoot from 2014, which, get this, was part of a photo shoot called Boys in Wonderland. Generally featured them in a theme park. So what does this mean? Does this mean that TXT is actually taking place sometime after BTS have already been there? Like, is this the theme park that Hobie was abandoned at, perhaps? It might be, in which case this is definitely placing BTS's story events long before TXT's, because this like place is being torn down. I should note that this is not the only thing connecting BTS and TXT. The one major aspect is of course the cat, the blue and the green eyes, that's in both of their stories, and of course the whale. Everyone likes the whale. It's a good whale. What a good whale. Anyways, it should be noted that I believe that these are happening in the same universe, but they're not directly necessarily affecting everything. There's just similar things that are existing in both of these stories. Or all of these stories, in fact. But I do hope to talk about all of this in more detail in the future, so stick around for that. So, in conclusion, what can we take away from this music video? What does it mean? How does it fit in? This is a perfect segue from that bright, happy, imaginary, dreamlike world that they had been living in to that dark descent that we see happen in Magic Island, for example, where I feel like that ending is where we're going to pick up off, like, in the future. And I am so excited for it! Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and make sure that you are subscribed to my channel with notifications turned on so that you're notified every single time that I post a new video. All of my social media is in the description, along with my Discord server, which everyone can chat in, and there's theories and stuff going on there with all the different groups. I also wanted to give a shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. Rally Carr, Alicia S., Lame Game Hero, Maria Pena, Savage 96er, Amanda Strickland, and Shirley. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay sunny. Bye! I say stay sunny, but it's pouring rain outside right now. It literally got so dark while I was filming. I'm so sorry. The lighting changed like 4 times. It's only 1 p.m.